Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap. Oh, gosh, man, I'm pumped to be here today on a big Monday, Victory Monday. People are asking in the chat if it's still a Victory Monday. Of course, it's a Victory Monday. We have Texas going to the college football playoff. Are you kidding me? Of course, it's a Victory Monday, man. We got just a whole lot to discuss today. I want to say hello to the chat, but first we'll kind of just go over what we'll talk about today. Of course, the topic of the day, the most fun fish to catch. I have some ideas, possibly some controversial ideas. There's some fish that you guys, there's some fish that you guys might think are fun that I say no, absolutely no way. We'll talk about that. I wanted to get back to the Athletic. They did their prospect rankings for the teams in the Final Four of the CFP. Go over those for Texas and for Washington, and I think it's good. I think it's going to kind of parlay into the main topic here, and that's why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022, right, Blake? That's the title. Yes, that's the title. Why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022. So we're going to discuss that. Has the narrative begun to change on Jatavion Sanders? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I think somebody around here might have been telling you this. This whole thing might have been cockamamie, and I'll give you a hint. It certainly wasn't Cody Carpentier who was saying that it wasn't that this whole thing felt cockamamie. We'll do some. We'll talk about the portal, a little bit of a portal roundup, some news from Catch, and his 10 thoughts from the weekend that what I'd like to go over with you guys. 3 Longhorns are AP All-Americans, Associated Press All-Americans. Tavondre Sweat is an Outland Trophy winner. We got to get to all of that stuff. And gosh, man, it's a big week coming up this week too, because we have this week. Blake, what day is? Hold on, Kobe Black is Wednesday. Just so during the show Wednesday, we're gonna have the Kobe Black announcement. So that'll be a fun show where we can react to hopefully Texas getting on board. Man, a dude who's super impressive there in the secondary. We also have this week coming up the SEC schedule kind of release thing they're doing on ESPN. So we'll be able to go through and kind of rank those things. Let's see. Another note. Ryan Watts might play safety in the bowl game. Where have you heard that before? I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. And then Danny Stutzman. Apparently, Danny Stutzman now is all the sudden. I mean, I guess he's not leaving. He's not leaving. Cody Carpentier says. So what is Sanders doing? Well, the from what Catch got from his sources in his 10 thoughts for the weekend was like, hey, let's tap the brakes on this whole thing that was cockamamie to begin with about JT Sanders coming back for college. So there's that. We'll talk more about that here in a second, man. Let's say what's up to you guys in the chat, man. And again, so happy to have you guys here, man. Grateful and thankful to be able to spend this time with you every day on Football with Friends. We got Blake Winfrey. So good to see you, my buddy. Nathan. Oh, he's saying, does this still count? Yes, of course it's still a Victory Monday. I came in with that. Text guy too. So good to see you, my friend. Blake Winfrey says, I don't know about you, Nathan, but a win is a win against Stanford in volleyball to send Texas to the Final Four. Sure seems like it's a double Victory Monday then. Of course, Blake Winfrey to always indeed very sharp. Also, Sweat winning the Outland. We can count that as a victory. I think that I mean the Aggies would put that up on the side of their stadium. Right? Yeah. Okay. Kenny R. It is a Victory Monday for sure, my friend. Colin Crowder. So good to see you, man. Sam Hayes. My friend. Ren Avelina, Football with Friends. It's late as hell. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Had to go over some things with Blake before the show. Have some things going on behind the scenes with the show that are going to be really cool moving forward. And Blake and I get to have a production meeting for about 30 seconds prior to each show, since I'm getting home with my kids. Let's see here. Richard Aria, so good to see you. Jay Ward, did you finally shoot a deer, brother? Did you finally get your deer? Look. I'm throwing rocks from a glass house, man. Become the 21st. I'm going to be getting out of here and taking a day off from this Football with Friends to see if I can go get in a ground blind and go get this scent of shame off of my body from just getting a. Blake, have you got your deer yet this year? No, Blake still hadn't got a deer either.
Nope. I hadn't had time to hunt though, Alex. We've been doing this.
Are you gonna get to go out?
Winning.
Are you gonna get to go?
I'll probably hunt exotics in early spring, something like that. But we'll see.
Maybe after the college football playoff. I think you can still go does and spikes after the end of the college football playoff. I know it's not as fun. I mean, who wants to go shoot a spike?
Luckily, my dad shot an elk last year, so we've still got some of that meat left. But until we run out of that,
do you have steaks left or just ground?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a few steaks left.
Whew. Golly, Blake.
We fried some up the other day. Fried up the old elk backstrap.
You need to hook me up, brother. That's really good. Okay, Nathan, is so good to see you, of course. Chad Gibson, good afternoon to you, my friend. Cody Carpentier, of course. Who thought JT was coming back? Chris, and no, you guys with the revisionist history. Everybody said that JT's coming back. He misses college. If he's not ready, yada yada yada. Cody had the big. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Jay Ward. I'm hunting a 150 point, 10 point. He's smart, keeps slipping on me. You got that sin of shame on you. That's a long way of saying that you got that sin of shame on you still, man. Cody coming back in here. He's saying, all I did was explain the rationalization for him coming back. Obviously, I don't think he should, but I ain't going to lie to the fine people in the chat and say I wouldn't understand him returning. I could never understand it. And who knows? He might still return, and I'll have the egg on my face. But as of now, no egg for me. Cody also says, Rogan is hunting whitetail with Ranella in South Texas this weekend or this week per his pod a few days ago. Oh, Rogan coming down to Texas. And you know that it's not going to be one of those, it's not going to be not that I have anything against high fence operations, but you know that Rogan and Ranella are all about fair chase and stuff. That's going to be going after those, that's going to be some, hope that Rogan packs his snake boots, man. I know you don't generally get them out quite as often. That's some real brushy country down there if you're going to go after those go after those big bucks. Okay, so look, Washington's okay. First of all, I did some work on Washington. Okay, I wanted to be more familiar with them, and I also wanted to watch back the last year's bowl game because in watching back last year's bowl game, I was totally struck by what I can't. We're gonna have basically a whole show of things that are just different, just things that are different. Why we can't look at that and say, man, well, that's the template for how things are going to be this year. And dude, even that game, that was a 7-point victory at the end, where. We'll go over all the things that happened. But if anybody that wants to call that game, some kind of dismantling or Penix owns Texas or any of the rest of this stuff, it's like, to me, that it's crazy, man. It makes zero sense. It makes such zero sense that I almost just said literally. I almost just said it like a complete moron. Whenever we look, let's just go through this. And this is, trust, you guys are going to have to stick with me here because all this is going to go together. All right. So I'm going to talk about how these guys at The Athletic have the Washington players, the best players on the Washington team ranked, and what that kind of means as far as looking back at last season and what we can pull out of that game. Like, what useful can we pull out of that? Because, that Sark and them, they're going to be watching a lot of film from this year, but they're going to go back and watch last year. They're going to say, like, well, what did they do whenever we went with orbit motion? What are they going to do when we, even though the team was different, things were different, all the rest, they're still going to look back at last year because obviously that's going to be a really good litmus test. But no, just like a really good, just a really good use case for, how is this team going to defend, or how is this team going to try to attack the things that we specifically do that are part of our just everyday existence and our little peccadillos and the things that we just always, the things that we do, right? Not necessarily look at concepts that are similar to ours, like look at exactly what we do. Right. Like, let's look and see what, how they reacted to those things. And when they look back at this game, I just think that there's going to be a lot that needs to be accounted for whenever we think about it. So I want to talk about the Washington guys, and I want to talk about the specific key personnel. But before we do, as long as we're here on this page, let's just talk about how they have the Texas guys ranked, right? Because it is a show, like, right? It's all of, it's a show where we talk mainly about Texas football. So Texas here. So here's how they have the Texas prospects ranked. So it's the top 5 NFL prospects on each team, okay, of the top 4. So the number 1 prospect that they have listed for Texas, and this is from Deontay Lee and Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic, and I'll just give us a quick, we got it, just start it off, as long as I'm scrolling down with a quick drum roll. Number 1 is Xavier Worthy, okay? It says that Texas offense is built to allow for any of its skill position talent to star in any given week, but Worthy's been consistently found to have explosive performances. They talk about how he's a sudden runner, rare athlete. You get to top speed from a dead stop near instantly. That's true. I can't remember the game, but Blake, we talked about that play just over and over again, where it became really obvious to me that NFL scouts were going to say, this is a guy that we're maybe expecting to run sub 4.3. I think that's just going to be the case. It was up the side. It was at home. It was up the sidelines on the west side of the stadium. I can't think of what game it was. It was a middle of the season. What are the middle of the season home games? I'll probably be able to look and just figure it out. Texas.
BYU?
It might have been. I think that might have been it.
Maybe BYU. Yeah.
Texas Longhorns. No, that's not it. And that's not right. Texas schedule. All things I probably should have done before the show, Blake, but I only had time to do so much. Yeah, dude. It had or maybe Kansas State. It was either BYU or Kansas State. In that game, the little kind of just a little kind of outside screen pass to Xavier Worthy where he got up, got like 12 yards before you could even blink an eye. It went to show that he's going to, like, his 10-yard split is going to be through the absolute roof, and he's going to blaze the 40, right? I think that whenever teams look at that, they're just going to say, as far as manufacturing touches for a player, as far as getting him involved, like all the rest of it, no matter what, teams are going to be able to utilize that type of speed. They talk about he's always going to get the comparisons to Devontae Smith because, Devontae Smith is the Slim Reaper. He's the Slim Shady. He's just really skinny, one of these 170 plus pound, slim, fast, really good in the Steve Sarkisian kind of advantage throw offense types of players. Like that's what Devontae Smith was, and that's going to be the obvious thing. But they don't think that he has quite the play strength of Devontae Smith, who clearly, he plays a stretch flanker. He plays Z in the NFL to, of course, AJ Brown's X. But they expect Worthy to be more in the slot, right? 56% of his yards he's gained after the catch this year. Ironed out the drops, dude. We'll talk about those drops in a minute. Right. And they give him an easy second round grade. So easy second round grade to me is that's that area that we talk about a lot. That Xavier Worthy seemed to me, a little bit earlier in the season, seemed to me be in a position to where the media and the larger scouting industrial complex at large was kind of penciling him in more as like a top 15 to top 20 kind of guy. We talked about it on Final Takes before about, did Xavier Worthy this year maybe hurt his draft stock a little bit? Is he maybe not quite as hot a name as he was? I hate to say hurt his draft stock, but is he not quite the hot name that he was? And I think it's kind of happened a little bit with him. His numbers have not been quite as gaudy as as somebody might have expected. Man, especially me, dude, coming out of he was running like a god coming out of. Blake, do you remember the fall camp?
Mm-hmm.
He was unstoppable. It was like, oh my God, Xavier Worthy he's fixing to do something really, really big here. And
I remember the hype that whole offseason. He flipped from Michigan after that didn't work out. And we started watching his film and hearing practice reports. It was like, holy crap! Like this dude is different.
Well, yeah, but it was this fall where I finally said, "Oh, well, okay, well, he's arrived." Like that's like he's him. That's
sure.
Like
you could see the hints throughout his freshman season, obviously. But
Oh,
you're correct that it all came together.
It wasn't a hint. It was just like shoving a truth right in your face as a freshman. It was the sophomore season that gave you hints that maybe that freshman season could have been, a bit of a mirage, right?
Cornell's correct, by the way. It was the Wyoming game.
Oh, it was the Wyoming game. Okay.
I was trying to think because Murphy was the quarterback for the BYU game, and I'm pretty sure it was Ewers that threw that pass. And then I looked up the play-by-play, and it was the Wyoming game.
Okay. Cody's saying this 1,000 receiving yards alongside Adonai and JT seems like maybe the scouting industrial complex just likes the new toys. Dude, that's so true. And what do we always say, Cody, about the draft? It's a flat circle. Like this, like the CFP, like all this stuff. Like it's a flat circle. It's Matthew McConaughey and True Detective. He's smashing the Coke can and saying it just all comes like everybody just gets back to where they started. The whole rest of it is just it's a way for content creators to keep creating content through the process. And as you do that, I've been guilty of it before. It's like you get into the weeds with some of these guys, and you find dudes that you really like and stuff like that. And you talk yourself into dudes or out of dudes, or this little thing comes up, and there are certain things that you double count, either good or bad and stuff. But it all just comes back full circle. Text Guy 2 is saying that Marlin is fun to catch. That is not true. So a rare L for Text Guy 2. I was going to say, I knew this was going to be unpopular, but Marlin and for me specifically Tarpon, I caught a giant tarpon. I think we showed some video of that once.
Yeah, we did.
That was not fun. Like that was tarpon with friends is hard as hell. It's
exhausting.
It is, and especially for me. And look, we're gonna get back to all this stuff. We're gonna talk about how this is not the same. But just one quick thing about tarpon. There's a place down where my business partner Byron, he lives off one of these keys near Sarasota, and there's this one where just all the marlin or all the tarpon, they come through this little channel, right? And from like May 20th or something till June 10th or so, like clockwork, the dudes are just out there in their tarpon boats, and everybody that does the offshore stuff or the inshore bay stuff or whatever, they all just get in their boats like right there, and people line up on the beach and they watch it, and it's like a bubbling cauldron of fish, and you just kind of throw your line into it. There's nothing really sporting about getting one of these things on the hook, right? It isn't like going around having to find one. But once they get on the hook, man, getting them out of the school, and then once they get out of the school, then they try to get back to those schools for safety. Mm-hmm. You could fight one of these beasts for hours. I did. It's just, and by the time you're done with it, especially for me, I was out there in Florida having fun. The night before, we went out drinking and stuff. We were having margaritas and beers and everything. And our guide was just like, he could see me sweating so bad. He's like, "You didn't go out drinking last night, did you?" It's like 6 a.m. Sun's just coming up. I was like, yeah, we went out drinking. He's like, "You got to sweat out those demons, boy." He's like, "Get it." I'm like, "Dude, this is too much, man. That tarpon fishing, man, that stuff is no fun." Anyway, so but back to the Texas players. So
number one, Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, number two, JT Sanders, who look, he was
okay.
He was never coming back. One of the country's most productive receiving threats at his position, ranks top 20 in total EPA as a receiver and in yards per route run. We know that yards per route run for wide receivers and or you may not know, but for wide receivers and for tight ends, one of the single most predictive analytics as far as projecting future performance, yards per route run. It's an efficiency metric that also takes into account earned volume, and so it's whenever you back test it, it's one of the most important. Load to bring down in the open field, impressive strides, 6'4", 240. They say he's not quite as elite or unique an athlete as Kyle Pitts, but he can line up all over the field. Mm-hmm. And they did note something here that I don't have charted. I thought was interesting. 36% of his targets came from the slot or outside.
Interesting.
But you know what, Blake? I would have, if you'd put a gun to my head and said more or less than 36%, I think I might have said more. Mm-hmm. You think about him. How many times do you remember JT Sanders getting down in a 3-point stance as an inline attached tight end and running some tight end route where he runs out, does a little tight end drag, and like it seems like he's always kind of out of the slot whenever he's so. Yeah, I would have thought it was a little bit more. Okay,
Did they rate his one-handed catching ability? Because I think that would be pretty high.
Dude, there have been two that have just been outrageous, but the first one was the most outrageous of those, right?
You think of the one over the middle where it's like throw came over his shoulder and he snagged like this? Yeah.
Just like don't hurt him, JT. Don't hurt him. It's just so sick. Okay, for number 3. Byron Murphy is number 3 on this list. He says it's a matter of preference between Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat. He says that that Murphy has some serious spring in his hips and his feet, and it's true. It shows he's the first out of his stance, how he's usually the first to get contact on the defensive line. Again, these things are true. I detect no lies there. It says, don't be surprised if he has the top 10-second split and broad jump at his position at the combine. So that's something that I've been, I hate to keep saying something I've been saying, but like, I feel like that this is a really good evaluation. Like, this is somebody who's watched Murphy and understands that he's really, really, really just a very, for lack of a better term, man, just a very springy guy. He's it's like, what are those things, Blake? Whenever you're little, you're probably too young. What was that He-Man toy you pushed down? And he got down, and then after a while, he would just kind of spring up out of it. And
I know what you're referencing. It was a little.
Somebody might know. What is that thing called? What is that thing called? Some kind of He-Man thing. The ghost is back on. Yeah, dude, hold on. Can I get that thing out of here? There, that'll get it out of there for now. It's just when this
Jay Ward, the first one to notice.
Jay Ward, hey, trust me, it tilts me endlessly. But the good news is it'll be gone in
Stretch Armstrong. There you go.
Yeah. What is it? Maybe a Stretch Armstrong. That's probably right, Nathan. I appreciate you, brother. Let's see. Football Junkie USA Today dropped the top 25 players in the 2024 playoffs. Oh, well, that'll be a good thing to look at. That'll be a good thing to look at.
It's similar to the list we're talking about now, but this is just by team.
By team. So Byron Murphy, he says that he mentions the 8 TFLs, the 5 sacks, which is that's fine. I hate it when people double count TFLs, but it's just how people do it. But a pressure rate of more than 17%. So the pressure rate would be a good thing. I can start counting pressure rate. I should do that. Blake, let's add it to the deep dig. It'd be great. Pressure rate. I think people would love that. Great. Yeah, it's just like snaps per production caused. It would just be snaps per pressure. But it wouldn't be a pressure rate. Well, I guess you could make it a rate, because what you'd say is this: you get the snaps per pressure, then you would just divide that back into the total snaps, and then they get pressure rate. And then they says it's all made more impressive by how he aligns as a nose or a shade, which is true. He doesn't play any three technique.
Alex, let me ask you: if you're an NFL GM, are you taking Murphy or Sweat?
Sweat.
Yeah.
Yep. So here, and Sweat is number 4. So it says Sweat is the thunder to Murphy's lightning, using his 350-plus pound frame to anchor down against combo blocks and downhill run schemes. Here's where they're wrong. Okay. They talk about how he moves around the interior. That's true, right? He plays both the shade and the 3 technique. He's a functional mover in spite of his wide base, uses his quick hands to get angles on linemen. That's all true. He said the biggest issues with Sweat will be fit and usage. Jordan Davis is the size of a Greek Titan, but the modern game makes it hard to get those kinds of guys on the field as often as you'd like. Teams that run a 3-4 will like, see, this isn't good. He's not only a 3-4 guy. That's not true. He says, but there may not be enough of a market to push him into the top 50. That's also not true. At this point, Sweat's going top 50. He won the dang Outland trophy. He's going to do well at the Senior Bowl. And here's the other thing too. You got to take into account they're just talking about him in broad platitudes, as if, oh, well, we just know with these big guys that with these dudes you can't get them involved because they typically can't do these things that we want out of our interior penetrators, right? Because what he's saying is in a 3-4. In a 3-4, what you have to do is 2 gap, right? You have a guy who's a straight up 0. Usually, I mean, you're gonna have ways you shift and shifts in your alignments and stuff, but your base technique is going to be a 2 gapping technique, right? To wherever you have responsibility for 2 gaps. The gap inside, say you're at the nose, right? You got to shove the guy off your body. You got to diagnose to this A gap, diagnose to this A gap, and have responsibility for both of them, right? If you're at the 4, you got to shove the tackle off your body, diagnose to B gap, diagnose to C gap, right? And so you need somebody who can really hold up, somebody who can anchor. Typically, when you got these really, really big body dudes, it's just just the run-of-the-mill kind of thing to say about him, right? Like, and whenever you talk about like the Aaron Donalds, the Byron Murphys, these kinds of dudes, the interior penetrators, these are the guys who can get up a gap, penetrate upfield. That's a 4-3 type of player, right? This is wrong. Sweat's killer in a 4-3. Look at him. He plays in one. I mean, he plays in one. Why would you want to take him out of his element? It's like, so he's going to go top 50. So that's all wrong. And then number 5 here. Any guesses, Blake?
Adonai Mitchell.
You got it. Adonai Mitchell. It says that he can be better in the NFL than we've seen him, significantly better in the NFL than we've seen him in college. Up and down production makes you wonder what's missing. Speed to take the lid off the defense. Catch radius to win at the highest point. Raw physicality to body up defensive backs. They just say he has got some inconsistency and that there were questions about his work ethic and dedication at earlier points in his career. I don't think that that's a worry at all. And I don't think that they list the best part of A.D. Mitchell's skill set, which, or the most appealing part of his skill set to me. And what really jumps off to me is just his ability to manipulate DBs at his route stem, at his route transition point. He's just he's so nifty up there, the way he moves with his hips, the way he gets in and out of cuts, and how he can kind of deceive what he's trying to do and just flash open, to create national separation, even though he's typically not the kind of, he can create separation with his body and with his size. So look, those are the Texas guys. We're gonna
not to mention Adonai's ability to show up in the biggest of games. He's gonna have a chance to extend his streak, Alex. He's had a touchdown in every playoff game he's played in so far. Now he's gonna have one, maybe 2.
Is there anybody else who you'd count on to just say, dude, this is gonna be like, if there's one guy you could pick who's going to score a touchdown versus Washington? I mean, what do you say? I mean, you say it's Adonai Mitchell. It's just what he is, man. Big time players make big time plays in big games, in big time games. So those are the Texas guys. I mean, we got a bunch of these chats to catch up on. And look, that was just the part where we talk about Texas. Little bit of a tough talk we're gonna have here about these Washington guys. But again, the theme of the show remains 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022, and we're going to explain exactly why next.
Casey says in the super chat, was hoping for a Texas-Bama rematch given the history of what happened in 2009. Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself, but man, I want that revenge bad. Casey, yeah. I'm telling you, like, that's what I think you're getting. I think the national championship is going to be Texas versus Alabama. And
I'm saying Texas is opened at 4.5-point favorites. Dude, that's a little surprising. I mean, the Michigan 2.5-point favorites over Alabama. That's the early line already. So.
Here's your $1 million question from Steven for $9.99. Texas secondary versus Washington passing game. Is Texas up to the task? Hashtag Horns.
Yeah.
It's the worst possible matchup, I think, from a football standpoint that Texas could have been given, because Michigan, J.J. McCarthy's a good player, but their passing game isn't what Washington is. And we know Texas's kryptonite is a really good quarterback. They've seen 3 of them this year, and all 3 of them have had at least some really, at the very least, some modest. What would we call what Milroe did in Tuscaloosa? Was that modest success? Or even something a little bit beyond that?
You're talking about just in that game?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because he ended up throwing for like 270 or something like that. Had Alabama in the lead, and then Texas storms into the fourth quarter. But I thought Milroe played well. And then Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard in their games obviously played really well. Longhorns win 2 of those games. They lose 1.
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's going to be a battle, guys. Texas and Washington. There's no reason to bullshit you. I think Texas should win the game, but I fully expect it to be a fourth quarter exciting affair.
what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Oh, yes, we're back. Football with friends. Man, are we having some fun today. We got the chat all up in here, man. Thank you guys so much. If you could please remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel. How much did your pay get docked last week, Blake?
Oh, gosh. Did I get paid last month? I'm not
even sure you got paid. So, dude, we need to make some money off of this, and Catch will not pay us unless we get at least to like 100 likes a show. So please. It honestly does make all the difference in the world. And while you're there, of course, what makes the biggest difference is subscribing to the channel, helping us to continue grow. You can get notifications as well. So certainly. Thank you guys for doing that. And when we couldn't do it without our great sponsors. Got a new sponsor coming on board with Football with Friends. We're going to be happy to announce that soon. We'll talk about a perfect partner for our great variety program here. That's going to be a lot of fun. But Specs, man, you cannot say enough about Specs. It's just wine, spirits, and finer foods, world-class service that's all about you. It's what I tell my son every night before he goes to bed, right? I say, son, here's to you. Here's to savings. It's the last thing we say before the end of his little 6-year-old, just turned 6-year-old prayers. He did have his birthday yesterday. Lots of fun.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
Definitely feel like Blake. You feel like you got swindled yesterday during these football games? You got a big Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce moment kind of taken away from you.
Oh yeah, of course.
Mahomes, Mahomes after the game. Did you see his interaction with Josh Allen?
Oh yeah, I saw the whole. I was watching the whole thing. He was going a little wild.
What was he doing? I mean, here's to me. I feel like he's
more than just
enough goodwill. He's built up enough goodwill over the years to where it's like he's never been a pain. He's never been a sore loser. So, I think it's fine. But I just thought it was funny that like the guy you go to complain to is not the winning quarterback.
You kind of feel bad. I felt bad for Josh Allen for sure.
Well, Josh Allen just patted him on the chest, like, "All right, buddy." Like, he just kind of smiles, like, "All right, buddy." He just walked off. He's like, he didn't care.
It was just it's a season of frustration that amounted to. I don't even think the call was like what set him off. It's just season of frustration.
The call was perfectly fine. Like I was having to watch on a little phone because I was with my son.
He was half a yard in front of the ball.
But it's like how you kind of have to you have to call it.
Yeah.
It was like I didn't see it at first. But like when they showed it back, it's like, well, yeah. I mean, you call it. Look at Kadarius. I mean, like, look at him. This idiot.
You have to call it. Yeah.
Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. What the heck, Blake? This is. I mean,
I said it all off season, and it's just playing out. What's crazy is as bad. They're that bad, and they're still 8-5 somehow. I keep having to remind myself, like they're gonna go to the playoffs. Like they'll be fine.
Well, that's my case. Well, that's my I know it's hard. I know it's hard to say. The MVP is anybody besides right now. It's like the du jour is clearly Dak. There's the Purdy talk, and some people are saying, and I don't think it would be cockamamie to say Tyreek Hill if they just keep this. I mean, who's the most explosive weapon in the whole, I forgot we have a Monday Night Football, a 2-game prize picks tonight we'll be able to put in.
Oh yeah.
Who's more scary to play than Tyreek? He just he changes the game completely. But I do think, man, if Mahomes manages to somehow sneak into a relatively high seed with this just awful surrounding cast, and with Kelce, having flashes of what he used to be, but just looking old, man. He looks old. He is old. He's 34.
It's not the same receiving core. It's not that Juju Smith-Schuster is that special, but compared to what they have, like they could have used.
And Kelce just looks different.
Kelsey's different. He's a year older. He was injured to start the season. I don't think he's been 100% all year.
And adding guys like Kadarius is a net loss. It's like just you know what I mean? There are guys you can add onto your team that make your team worse. Kadarius Toney is one of those guys at this point. So he's and here's like this how like you didn't see Justin Watson getting 60% snap counts last year. So like it's just it isn't quite the same, man.
Rasheed Rice is the best receiver on the roster, and he's a rookie, and he makes his own mistakes. Like
it took him to dude. It took him up to what 2 weeks ago to get above a 54% snap count too. Like
it's rough. It's rough.
All right,
we can move on from.
Okay, so we go back to the chat. I just wanted to see if there's anything I missed here. If you guys have questions, of course, always feel free to post.
There was a recruiting question I wanted to put up from Gage. How y'all feel about Ryan Williams and chances Texas can snag him from Bama before February? Did you see this, Alex?
Yeah, he's not one that I paid super much attention to, and the main reason I haven't is because it feels to me like people in the know maybe don't think the chances are that good.
Well, the thing is, there are some rumors that he might schedule official visits to schools before he signs in February. So I'd say hold your horses on Texas being involved until I get a solid date. He's coming to Austin at this time.
We're talking about we're talking about the kid that's going to reclassify.
Yes,
right?
the wide receiver, teammates with KJ Lacey, the quarterback that's committed to Texas.
I mean, I think he's going to go to Bama at this point, but I haven't talked to him. I don't make a living calling up teenage boys. So
you have Jason Sukamel for that.
Yeah. There was somebody that asked if they missed the JT Sanders talk. It's really not that much JT Sanders talk. It's just, Ketchum said he'd heard from sources over the weekend that the narrative that had begun to crop up that he was going to be coming back for his, another season at Texas. There's beginning to become it's like I've said, it's like that's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. That whole thing never made any sense to me. And he's saying that thing's definitely cooled off, and that they're certainly thinking that at this point that that probably isn't the most likely outcome in anymore. Basically, it's back to, it looks like JT Sanders is probably going pro. Let's see. So Football Junkie. So we got to that one. Stretch Armstrong, all that talk. Somebody says he's taking the unicorn. Well, I'm not sure what that's all.
I think that was in regards to Tavondre Sweat.
Okay. So yeah, that was Kane Campbell. So Kane Campbell, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. But yeah, that's the JT Sanders stuff. Watts at safety might be huge. That was something else that Ketch said that he heard from some sources, and I think that there's one. We've talked about it for two things about Ketch's report on the possibility of maybe playing Watts more at safety. One, I think it makes perfect sense, and I think one of his sources is a good football mind to suggest it. Two, I see no chance of it happening. You're not gonna move him to safety at this point.
Yeah.
You're gonna rotate him in at boundary corner, and that'll be that. I mean, missing Derek Williams for one series, it's it's a big deal. Clearly, you'd like to play him, but guys, I chart every single game that Texas has played for the last 11 years. I've charted every game this year. I can tell you guys, it isn't like Derek Williams is a fixture in these games at safety during the first half. He isn't, not especially lately. Lately, it's been Taff and it's been Jaron Thompson. Like Taff and Jaron Thompson are starters. So it's, clearly Derek Williams would let me just, I'll go through. Do you guys want to just go through and look at this together? We can just go look.
Real quick before we do a deep dive, this was from Ian Woods in the chat, who said his son took this buck here.
All right, Ian, where at, brother? And what's he shooting? Dude, look at that. Can you can you make it a little small bit bigger?
Yeah, let me see.
I don't mean this. I don't mean the spread. I just mean the actual picture. Oh yeah. Happy kid. Yeah. Dude. Wow. How old, man? That is a good looking deer, man. What do you think, Blake? No, he's probably 3.5.
Yeah, I think 3. I think he's older than 2.5.
3.5. He's got a little bit
nice 10.
Got the body of a maybe more of a 2.5, but there's no way a 2.5 has that rack. That dude, what a great, oh man. Do you want to show the thing that I sent you, Blake?
Sure.
Okay, backyard footage. I call this thing that that coyote. Look how big that coyote. That coyote's well fed from eating like 4 of my chickens. Look at that thing.
Oh, Ian says Blanco County 223. That's a good one for Blanco County, man.
And a 223, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. You can take a deer out with a 223.
He did.
Yeah. 223 is the same thing as like a 5.56
He's
NATO,
got,
right?
and he's got 3 years of cam picks. So there you go.
But 223 is the same as 5.56, right?
Yeah, that's
Someone in the chat will let me know. I think those are the two that are interchangeable, like for your just your typical AR platforms. I think.
Yes.
Yep. I always feel weird. Like the guys at the range will tell you that you can put in 223 and 5.56 and just put them all in the same mag, and you're just what? I mean, I guess you can. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Jay Ward says, yeah, but the 223 comes with soft point. Oh man, that's just killer. Literally, man. This is like what a young killer, man. He's never gonna forget that. And I know Dad's never gonna forget it either. It must be the coolest thing. Right? Wow, man. That's awesome, dude. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. If you have anything like that, you can always email it to Blake or you can email it to me, alex@rosterwatch.com. Also, if you're interested in like sponsoring the show or working with us in any way or just whatever, if you have questions, if you have like an email, if you have a take on Texas that's too long for the chat, you want me to read it on the show, let me know. As long as it's not too cockamamie, man, we would love to involve.
Or if it is overly cockamamie, we'll also read it.
Yep. Let's see. Football Know-It-All says the key here is getting pressure to speed up Penix's clock. If we can get home, great. Hit him awesome. Make the move in the pocket for the delayed blitz from the second level. And I think that's probably a good enough take. Let's go over the Washington players that they list here.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. At number 2, so the Washington here. So of course, number 1, Romo Dunze. We've talked about him a lot. He wears number 1. When you watch him, he's really, really good. Top 10 in total EPA on his targets. He's only behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. He's just, dude, he's a big play guy. They say he's not quite the future star that Jamar Chase was coming out of LSU, but don't be surprised to hear that comparison. I'm not sure I see. I mean, he looks a little like Jay Chase. He's deep, but they're right. He's not a Jay Chase from a pure physical standpoint. Just the way he looks, though, almost even I think I know where they got that. He even kind of just looks like him when he's in his stance, just when he's lining up to go run his routes. Kind of reminds you of Jay Chase a little bit. So here's the other one, and I haven't done enough watching this guy, right? But this is Braylon Trice, who's the edge, and they said he's the kind of 4-down rusher that NFL teams will heavily covet. 273 pounds, has the power and the base to push the pocket or set edges in the run game. Let's see. They don't talk about – so he had just – so here's the thing. I was like, man, what are his – I didn't see him with that gaudy number. So just 8 combined tackles for loss and sacks, but his tape shows how often opponents avoided him, and he still had a 16% pressure rate. So he didn't have the same pressure rate as Byron Murphy. He sounds to me like he's a guy who has – he's one of these guys who they think is real toolsy, right? But maybe he hasn't had the production. But he's got to be real toolsy to be this high up on this list. Okay, here's the other one. Number 3 is this the guard, Troy Fautanu. Powerful run blocker. Thrives in inside zone in the gap scheme world. Low pad level, low center of gravity. Physical dimensions to be a swing lineman, projecting well on the interior, but also playing tackle in a pinch. Better at pass setting laterally than vertically, which probably I'm not sure if that matters that much, considering the fact that Texas, outside of the way that you could exploit somebody who, and I don't naturally know that he's better at pass setting laterally than he is vertically. That's just somebody else's evaluation. But if so, it would make sense to get Anthony Hill matched up on him on the edge as opposed to an Ethan Burke or one of these other guys, right? Certainly not a Jed Bush, right? The next one on the list would be Jalen Polk, their wide receiver, the guy who, Jalen Polk and Rome Odunze. They have 3 really good wide receivers.
And McMillan was the third one.
But Polk and Odunze are a little bit bigger than McMillan. But McMillan is uber productive. And if you remember last year, he was the one that made that catch in the end zone where it looked like, how did it not touch the ground? And you said, man, the guy's got ball skills out the wazoo. But they just talk about Polk, who kind of filled in for McMillan this year. Had over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns this year. So 65% of his receptions move the chains or put points on the board. So a big play guy on, down in distance situations and down in the red zone and stuff like that. They're going to like him as a big slaughter and X, right? And then Jalen McMillan, the other. So 3 of these receivers are the top 5 on their team as far as their draft prospects. McMillan missed a significant chunk of the 2023 season, but he's a serious speed mismatch out of the slot. He can play a little bit outside, great stop start runner, shifty creator. Like, this is all the stuff that we were saying, like really good hand skills, big hands for a guy who you consider like a shifty slot player. He's a really good player. It's going to be a handful dealing with these guys, man. So listen to this. Who's not on that top 5? Penix. They have 5 guys that scouts think are higher, better draft picks than Penix. So it just said bonus. It's like, it probably looks odd to not have the one of the Heisman finalists in this bunch, but it's no insult to be slotted behind so many top 100 picks. It's like,
Penix isn't a top 100 pick.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. What I don't care. Like, these lists are whatever. Like, what I take away from this is that people who make their living evaluating these players think that they have 5 players on that team with higher draft ceilings this year than Michael Penix Jr., who was there for the Heisman ceremony, who a lot of people I would think have, slotted as like a second roundish kind of pick. I'm not huge on Penix. I think he's good, right? I think he's good, but Here's what they said. Though Penix has always been willing to take big chances downfield, the most impressive part of his 2023 tape was how poised he remained against tough competition, pushed through the pain during Washington's first game against Oregon, made the necessary throws to defeat Oregon State, Washington State. In the Oregon rematch, he stood tall against the blitz, picked the secondary apart. That's spot the lie, right? He's his throwing motion they complain about, but they say that he's one of the most consistently accurate passers in the class, has the arm talent to make it in the NFL. Left-handedness aside, his game is reminiscent of Tua. It's so every guy who's left-handed is Tua. Dylan Gabriel, at least Dylan Gabriel's kind of Hawaiian, something, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's crazy, man. All this.
So they leave Penix off of that top 5 list, and I just pulled up that USA Today list that the chat referenced earlier, the top 25 players in the CFP. Number 1 overall, Michael Penix Jr.
So it just depends on where you get this stuff. But the fact of the matter is that Washington has 4 players besides Penix, who are key to the passing game and key to that one area that Washington, clearly should. If you're DeBoer, you go in there saying, well, who would we rather attack? These behemoth, these monster machines in the middle of the defense, and try to take what's the running back's name? The Mississippi State Dillon. Just try and pound Dillon over here time after time. Then maybe go 3 and out and give the ball back to Texas. I think he thinks it's like, I've seen some things on film to where some of these corners we can run by them, man. Like, there's some of these spots where maybe we can get them confused and we can get these safeties playing different coverage in the corners, or some of the stuff that we've seen in some of these games. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. Texas, it seems like it's gotten some of those issues behind it, but this is good. Look, Tony Fish is saying that Washington's overhyped, and I can understand why you would think that Washington's overhyped. Their schedule hasn't been as good as everybody says. And Texas is a different team this year than it was last year whenever it played Oregon. And anybody pointing to that game last year, I want to go through the reasons why. Okay. So here are the reasons why. This is different. Why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022. All right, here we go. Worthy, Xavier Worthy. Miserable in this game. Just miserable. I think he might have had 84 yards or something like that. Like there were two passes that hit him in the hands, and he had a broken hand. And they were deep balls where he flashed wide open, and Quinn put it right on him, and it was back-to-back plays. One of those things where Sark said, "Do you remember this, Blake?" Sark said, "There's like, I can't believe that he dropped that. Like we got something there. We're gonna run the same play from the other side, and we're just gonna go to him again because there's no way he's gonna drop two if we get the same look, right?" These were dimes, dude. Like Ewers put it on him. He had gotten past he'd gotten past these guys. He was bracketed, and it didn't matter. Ewers put it in the exact right spot on one play when he was on the left side of the formation. Come back on the right side of the formation. He was even more open the second time, and the drop was even more egregious the second time. And then Texas goes to 4th and 11 and has to punt the football away.
That doesn't happen. Remembers who the leading receiver for Texas was in that game? I know you know it. I know it.
Well, I just watched it. It's Casey Kane, but it was only because he caught that stupid Hail Mary at the end, right? That's one of the other things we'll talk about. Look, my guy Harish knows. Worthy had 2 deep shots. They gems. That's a great way to say it. It's just gems. I can't. I don't know if JD or if Adonai Mitchell gets as open as Worthy was on those plays because Adonai Mitchell's not as fast as Worthy and doesn't have the shakes that Worthy does, and clearly Worthy's just he's like a Deshaun Jackson, right? But AD Mitchell will never drop that football.
He's catching the ball.
And Xavier Worthy that doesn't have a broken hand he's never dropping both those footballs, and those are both touchdowns. Like it's a whole different game. Like it's a whole. That's just one way that Texas 2022 is different than Texas 2023. And if you look at the Washington side, they McMillan, Polk, Odunze, Penix. I mean, they were all there last year. All these guys were there last year. They're making plays against Texas last season. There were plays where Terrence Brooks was doing this thing where he takes a sword and puts it in his what is that thing they do? They like get a sword and unsheath it and put it back in their belt or something. They say incomplete, and he's standing over Romo Dunze and doing this. Terrence Brooks last year was doing this against Romo Dunze, the coveted Romo Dunze. Oh my God, he's Jamar Chase. Why is Terrence Brooks standing over him, looking down, saying incomplete, and putting he's a freshman last year, right? Wasn't Brooks a freshman?
Yeah.
Washington's a lot alike. Washington's a lot like that, right? Again, please like the show, subscribe to the channel. The next thing. Keelan Robinson was the lead back for this team last year, and it was completely miserable. Just miserable. You had Jonathan Brooks, who was still dealing with the cockamamie sports hernia. Blake, have we even figured out what a sports hernia is at this point?
I don't know. Sports hernia?
Is it different than a hernia?
I think it's just a hernia caused from sports. I don't know. That's my medical guess.
Isn't a hernia where your like muscles in your stomach area kind of
like groin
open, and then your guts kind of pop out a little bit?
I think so. I've never had one.
You wouldn't want to play with that thing, Blake.
No.
So Worthy didn't want to play, or what's his Jay Brooks didn't want to play with it. What did Keelan Robinson even run for in that game? I mean, this was like just
8 carries for 27 yards.
8 for 27. How many carries were there total?
6 for 18.
Who?
Brooks.
So 14 total, and then anybody else have any runs?
Ewers had 4 for 6. So 18 for 51 overall.
Miserable.
They couldn't run the ball.
Do you guys see that being any different this year? Miserable. No DeMarvion Overshown last year. This was
Gage makes a good point. This Texas team would smoke last year's Alamo Bowl Texas.
I'm telling you guys, man. In this game, there was all right at running back. Instead of Bijan and Roschon, you have a banged up sports hernia, Jonathan Brooks.
That was a team designed around Bijan and Roschon too, and they weren't there for the bowl game. So it wasn't like they had played with Keelan Robinson.
I was gonna get to that. You have what? You have 20. You have 15 practices to get ready. But I mean, in 15 practices, are you really just gonna rewrite everything that you do and maybe like, all right, well, every play that we do is gonna be some little slip screen to Keelan Robinson? It's like, no, you're gonna have to. You can't just. You got to call the plays, man. Like the team has to run the plays. They have to. There are going to be things that you do. There are going to be things you like more this week than the rest. You do your best to tailor it to the talent that you have there, but you can't just change up everything. You can't just say, "Well, we're changing our complete identity." It goes against everything Sark always says. About building a culture, doing all the rest. Is somebody asking? Did somebody mention anything about and call it a 3-3-5 flyover?
About the Washington game last year.
All right, football know-it-all. Do you guys think if our DL is playing effectively enough, we play the secret weapon of the 3-3-5 flyover D, bring an ISU's D coordinator to help teach as a parting gift? Do we have the personnel?
It's unstoppable when you run that defense, Alex. Impossible to attack.
We're gonna get back to what actually matters about all this, and we're gonna do that. I got to take a minute to fly over. God, we're gonna get back to this next.
I'm assuming we get number 2 next, and I'm assuming obviously that would be Washington, unless they want to get kooky and go to the bottom and give us 6. But I'm assuming we get number 2. Oh, they're gonna say it and then cut away to Harbaugh. They cut away to Jim Harbaugh watching, and now we see the clap reaction in Indianapolis. So we are really slow burning this one. Michigan's won. Jim Harbaugh is clapping and sending someone to all 3 of the prospective
Harbaugh had
opponents.
the signals before the announcement was ever made.
Yes, he did.
Knew.
Yeah, well
He
played.
hired someone to be in the room, to buy a ticket to be in the ESPN production room.
The number 2 team we would assume is next. It is, and it's Washington. All right, there's no shock. 2 undefeateds, 2 that we knew if they're undefeated and they win, they get in. They're in. Michigan's in the 1-4 game. Washington is in the 2-3 game. DeBoer and his crew, well-deserving, like Jason said, beat Oregon twice. Now, this may be Texas next. This may be the moment, Texas fans, you've been waiting on, because number 3 would be next. Number 3 is next. If it's Texas, then all this hard work. This is why you lift those weights. This is why you do all that
and
shit.
Washington's not having a party, so we don't have to
cutting
do
away
the
the
cutaway
Washington
shot.
Exactly. Could it be Texas? Could it be Texas at number 3? It's got to be the next thing they announce. This could be Texas. Or is it going to be Bama? Or is it going to be Florida State because they're undefeated and they're really weird and they're going to put them at 3? We'll see. Michigan won.
Put Georgia
2.
5.
Texas is in. Texas is in.
Oh,
This just
Texas at
in.
3.
Texas is in. They are the 3 seed. Texas and Washington will have a rematch. It's probably, well, I don't know if it's going to be Rose Bowl or not. We'll have to, it may be Atlanta.
That's going to be a fun game. That should be a fun
They're
game.
in. They're about to show the reaction. They just went crazy. Phones are being utilized in Austin, Texas to video and take pictures. Things are being thrown. Anwar Richardson is probably being pushed and pulled. Steve Sarkisian is looking very excited. Texas is in. Congratulations, Longhorn fans. You put on the show you needed to put on. The Undertaker gave viewers a belt, and the committee couldn't say no to you.
Oh gosh, I get pumped up every time I see Chad doing that stuff, man. It's like I get to relive the whole experience, of course, here on Football with Friends, man. So happy to see you guys, man. So happy to be here. If you are enjoying the show, man, gosh, man, I hope I got 160 of you guys in the chat. If you guys could just please click to like the show, subscribe to the channel, we certainly appreciate it as we continue to grow here and bring you some bring you some good content around football, the draft, NFL, and of course the Texas Longhorns, recruiting, all the rest. Big kind of recruiting stuff coming up, man. Feeling good about Kobe Black and Xavier Filsaime and stuff. We're gonna have all that, and should have a fun time. Maybe sweating out the Kobe. It should probably be the Kobe Black show on Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Unless things go haywire. Anyways, just
Hey guys, if
pivot
it's
to a
not
bowl
the Kobe
preview
Black show on Wednesday, y'all know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, but I think it might be a Kobe Black show, man. That guy's good, dude. He's a big old wearing that big old number
We've
number
been waiting
2.
for that commitment for like 6 months now. I feel like it's like, oh, he's getting close to a decision, and then it's it's another month.
I was watching the state championship game. Is he from Waco Connolly? Number 2 for Waco Connolly. Is that it?
Believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Gosh,
Yes.
he's a big, good looking kid, which is really, really, really good ball skills. Oh my God, is this true? There's only one like on the show?
That just means Nathan hasn't refreshed his page since he first joined, and he was the first like. Well done, Nathan.
I was about to walk off the set, man. Elroy Rilla says, rewatch the Alamo Bowl, and I'm not at all concerned. Hey, well, you guys could just save yourself the time of hearing me go through this and whatever, and you can go through and watch it yourself. But I think you'll probably come away with the same take that old Elroy did. And what a great name, Elroy. Golly.
Awesome.
You don't get names like that anymore. Elroy? Gosh, I like that. I like the sound of that. All right. What else is different, right? What else is different? Why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022? We've already talked about no overshown and the fact that Diamante Tucker Dorsey was made into an every down player. Look, DTD was fine. Sure, he's great at his luxury home sales nowadays. I have nothing against the guy. He seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
He's not, he's not overshown.
He was a good. Let's not
He's
like
a decent sub package player. It's fine.
Yeah. But he's not Anthony Hill. Like, of course,
He's not Anthony Hill. And just let me look at the deep dig from. We never even looked at that Derek Williams stuff that I wanted to look at. You guys could though. Can we? Because we looked at the coyote and we looked at the deer and all the rest of the stuff. Right? We had Ian's son with the deer and we looked at the coyote in the backyard. That coyote's well fed. I'm telling you, my dog. We haven't had any predation since we got that big puppy outside. So I think he's helping out a little bit. What was I even saying? Are we talking about Texas? Oh, yeah, we're talking about the game, right? Why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022. No Bijan, no Roschon. We kind of talked about that. Oh yeah, but the Derek Williams stuff, you guys just got to believe me. It isn't like he's a fixture at the rotation. They kind of keep it tight lately between Jaron Thompson and Michael Taft to start football games. Derek Williams will probably get in maybe 2 to 3 series later than he normally would. So this whole thing about Watts, I don't buy it. Maybe, and I'm not saying Catch is wrong because all he's doing is reporting what some dude told him, right? So I mean that's what people want to hear. It's like, well, Catch, what are you hearing? What are you hearing? He's like, well, I heard this. He's like, here it is. Like, take it or leave it. But it's like, I just don't think that that's going to come to fruition. That Watts would play safety in this game to make up for Derek Williams. It just doesn't make sense to me. Jake Majors in this game. Jake Majors this year has been good. Jake Majors has turned good. He's just turned good. He's not bad, man. And I know you guys might have priors about Jake Majors, but we've talked about it. And if you just I'll just pull it up, just looking at historical context, you guys can see as far as the snaps per disruption allowed historically, Jake Majors is right here out of this many players, right? And it's up to now 76 total players that have played at least 100 snaps at Texas. Jake Majors this year's allowed disruption during the regular season once every 36.7 snaps. Okay? Once every 36.7 snaps. He hasn't been the Jake Majors that you think you remember from the whole time before. He's actually turned good. He's actually one of Texas' best as far as protecting against stunts, twists, stuff like that. He's smart. They call him the football cyborg. He's finally gotten to where he moves a little bit better. He's finally gotten to where he can move laterally and actually maybe move bodies just in solo assignments, right? He can do it. Certainly better when he gets a little help. Certainly helpful to have a guy in those three-hand techniques like DJ Campbell that can help you move these bodies. But he's been better this year. Like whether it's the surrounding cast, whether it's the development.
You're telling me Kyle Flood develops his guys, Alex?
Yeah. I think it's a mix of things, right? I mean, that's the biggest. But
look at Christian Jones. What we thought of those two guys, Majors and Jones, 2 years ago, we're like, okay, they're just players. But
look at DJ. Look at DJ Campbell last week. Yes. Last week, notwithstanding, he was horrible last week. But I mean, look at him, Christian Jones. I mean, look at Kelvin Banks. But he's like these guys like rocket ships, man. It's been amazing to see. And Jake Majors is good. And last year in this game, do you want to know what Jake Majors did in this game? Let me just pull the deep dig up, and let me just tell you. Okay, so this was the bull. So I need to get the bull OL. So Majors in this game, let me sort by the disruption allowed. He allowed on how many total snaps? So Jake Majors in this game played 64 total snaps. I want to make sure that he didn't have a penalty as well. No. Okay. No penalties, but 64 total snaps, 2 run stuffs, 1 TFL, and a pressure. So 64 divided by 4 is what, 16? So he allowed disruption in that game once per every 16 snaps. He's allowed it this season on average once every 37.6 snaps. If we don't count that's just for the regular season. So we're talking about allowing disruption literally to a factor of 2 plus X fewer times, right? It's just he played a game that a lot of disruption allowed in that game by Jake Majors. You could see it in there so much so to where I had to go back and look at the actual game logs to see, golly, what did he even get credited with? And it was those 2 bad run stuffs, the 1 TFL and the pressure. That is not a once every 16 snaps allowing disruption for Jake Majors. That is not something that we're used to seeing this season. The only player who's even had a game like that on their resume this season would be Hayden Connor. He's had a couple sort of like that. And clearly DJ Campbell has had a couple of those bad snaps per disruption games as he is still continued to really, really elevate as far as just his overall scores, because those bad disruption games were mixed in with just other dominant portions of his game. Whereas with Hayden Connor, during that time when the left side of his body was injured, he was just allowing disruption through his left half the whole time. But that's something out of Jake Majors. We're not going to see it again. It's just, it would be completely completely unexpected, right? It's just like it just isn't going to happen.
Speaking of completely unexpected, Kane pointed this out. I know you like Prize Picks. Might as well add Dylan Johnson under 70.5. There are some Prize Picks already up for the Texas game. A few of them. We got a Quinn Ewers passing number. We got a CJ Baxter rushing number. And
what are they?
Johnson rushing number for Washington.
What is Penix's number?
Penix is at 312.5 passing, and Ewers is 290.5.
Is there one for Romo Dunze?
Romo Dunze 99.5.
Wow, really?
McMillan 81.5. Polk 58.5.
90.
And I tell you what, you look at that chart that shows the past 5 games, a lot of green. He's been hitting it, 4 out of the last 5.
Yeah. Let me tell. So
interesting stuff.
Let me talk a little bit about the. Let me talk a little bit. So somebody's mentioned the defensive line. I'm gonna just pull up a couple examples here. and we're going to go through one inside zone, split zone concept here. Texas was defending against that you'll never ever see this season. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, but miserable run fits, miserable pad level, miserable. I mean miserable. Here, just let me show you. So we can't show video of this from the broadcast, right? But what we can do is just take still images. So let me see if I can just show you this one. Well, that's how it is. That showing number 1? Okay, so that's the first one, okay? Let me get to that number 1. Okay, so right here, can you see my cursor?
Yes. Yeah, we got
Okay,
you.
so what we're going to see here, I believe it's a zone technique, right? Or it's a zone call, but I think it's a split zone that you see a lot from Texas, right? Where you get this guy coming like this and, coming this way across. And then you have Penix that's going to do his RPO stuff here with 21. They're going to have the mesh point here, and he's going to find his zone lane and want to cut back, right? These two guys right here are going to double team Alfred Collins. These two dudes here are going to double team Vernon Broughton, okay? But this is the way that they're trying to move them, okay? Whenever these two guys double team Vernon Broughton, you're going to want to have Benda fill in through here. Whenever these two guys double team Collins, you're gonna this basically this A gap that's going to turn into a zone lane. That's where that's where Jalen Ford is going to need to fit up, okay? Let me go to the next one. Window. So here's number 2. Okay, so whenever we go to number 2, look at how miserable this is. Look at this pad level on Vernon Broughton. Look at this pad level on Alfred Collins. Look at them. I mean, they say that low man wins, but it's like, what is this all about here? Like, dude, Vernon Broughton here, Texas this year, what they've been super awesome at is they have been awesome at just not only just keeping these linebackers clean to be able to come make their plays up through these zone lanes that are starting to kind of create these cutback lanes that are starting to create themselves here, right? They've actually been able to split this thing and just go up and get to the ball carrier. You know what I mean? That's what Devondre Sweat's made a living doing, right? Just splitting that thing, getting up to the ball carrier. But look how far back Vernon Broughton already is. He's already like 3 yards off the line of scrimmage here, just with the initial power step that these guys have taken. The same thing for Alfred Collins. Look at him. He's flat-footed here and just leaning into these guys. There's no
going to the ground.
There's like no way he's going to be able to make an athletic play. All right, so let's go to the next one. Go to number 3. This is almost the most disturbing because you get to number 3. And this is all continuing, right? This is all continuing. It's like Collins didn't get anything done here. Broughton looks like he's about to just get run off to who knows. This game, they're about to run him off into West Texas somewhere, right? And you have Jalen Ford is somehow by this H-back right here, is this H-back split zone action is somehow taking his eyes right here, wherever the gap he needs to be fitting up is right here, as these guys completely systemically fail. This is what bad pad level gets you. This is what happens when you're not the low man. This is what happens when you're not the bulldog that Byron Murphy has been. You're not the rock that Tavondre Sweat has been. And this is what happens whenever you're Jalen Ford, who, as these guys fail, well, at least they're taking up these blockers. At least you got a one-on-one advantage here to this cutback, right? Look what happens next.
Oh no.
Look at this. Broughton is out of the picture.
Wow.
He's now a good 5 yards from where he started. He's completely double teamed. Here's Jalen Ford. He's gone over this way. He's been swindled by the split zone action here from the H-back. Now he's having to come back across, and now we're looking. This is the 50-yard line, right? That's the little Alamo with a little Doritos thing or whatever's on it. That's the 50-yard line. This thing goes for a touchdown. This thing goes for a touchdown. Do you understand? Like, This goes for a touchdown because Jalen Ford didn't fit up his gap. This guy keeps his pad levels too high. It's just miserable. Alfred Collins, neither of these guys can defeat any. They don't even have to defeat the double teams. If they could just keep them, if they could just keep these guys off the linebackers, they've done enough. But then here's what you get to. You get to 5. Jalen Ford is having to dive to make the tackle here. Vernon Broughton is about to get put on his rear end right here. Alfred Collins is completely out of the play, as is Barron Sorrell. He's not going to make this tackle. This guy's able to get leverage on Jaron Thompson. Ryan Watts is already set up for just a terrible pursuit angle. And next thing you know, this guy is walking down the sidelines to the end zone. And it started out right here on slide number 2 with this idiotic run fit from the defensive line to get this play started. Blake, I can't tell you how much different that is than anything that we've seen out of Texas this season. It won't happen. The culture won't allow it. Like it won't. It's like, I think that's the kind of thing, they talk about accountability and vulnerability and stuff like that. They would need to be vulnerable going back to the locker room talking about that thing. And you just feel like they want to cry into their pillow in front of their buddies and send each other letters saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I can't believe I played." Like you don't see it. And dude, throughout the whole course of the game, I was just reminded how much different it was whenever I thought, for some reason, we talked about it before, I thought that Keandre Coburn didn't play in this game. I thought he was one of the ones who sat out. He wasn't one of the ones who sat out, right? And I was just reminded why people were why people were down on him for a large part of last season. I was reminded why Texas would, in stark contrast to this season, why they would let up in the second half of football games and let people come back and beat them and let them win, and why the defense would get gashed in the run game, and why we would just ask these questions like, is it the culture? Is it strength and conditioning? What is it? Like, how is it that there's these third quarter collapses and stuff? And the fact of the matter, man, these third quarter collapses had a ton to do with pad level and run fits. They just did. Keandre Coburn stands straight up out of his stance, and to start games, it's like you could tell they were being coached on this. You could tell during the week that it had because to start the game, it's not an issue. It just is not an issue. But as the game wore on, I don't think it was about what they've been, and guys in the chat are saying stuff like, PK, that's PK development stuff. And I think that's true, because I don't blame PK or Bo Davis for what would happen to these guys through games. I blame these players for just getting fundamentally unsound and just not doing the lean, just standing up and leaning on dudes. It's just, this team does not stand up and lean on anybody this year. They don't do it. And it goes to show that Texas has the Outland Trophy winner on the defensive line. Outland Trophy winners on defensive line don't get pushed out to West Texas on inside zone plays whenever they're they split double teams and they go and they get back there and they cut your legs out from underneath you and they eat you for lunch, and then they walk back to the huddle for the next play, right? Defensive lineman of the year in the Big 12, like Byron Murphy, they don't stand up like Alfred Collins does there and just let himself get completely washed, leveraged, and then stand there and watch this, just stand there completely just out of the play. It doesn't happen. I could have shown example after example. This was the one that had a good end zone angle to where we could look at the split zone action. We could see what happened with Jalen Ford. Jalen Ford doesn't do this stuff this year. He was better last year than he's been this year, but can you remember a play where Jalen Ford ever got his read so wrong as far as the run fit?
No,
he just left it so wide open. That kind of thing, it hasn't happened this year. I'm not saying it can't happen. Systemic failures happen. Look at the last 3 plays of the OU game. Now, that wasn't with the run fits, that was with the coverage, but systemic failures can happen. I'm not saying that they can't. It feels to me like, though, this is a team that's gotten over it. It feels like that they've gotten a lot of that stuff out of their system. But that is miserable. What we just looked at is miserable. It's like, let me just ask you, how many times have you seen me come on this show this year and get that and then get that tilted about a play? I talked to you guys about all these plays. I talked to you about all of them. We come in here, we look at them, we put them in slow motion. There was the one play versus K-State where I showed you the Reed Senate stuff, and I said, Texas could have lost on this play. This was bad how they did it. I mean, we looked back ad nauseum at what happened at Oklahoma, or what happened at the Cotton Bowl. But you could understand what it. You could talk yourself through. I can't talk myself through this. It's just like that's really bad. So it's why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022. Quinn, we talked a little bit. We talked a little bit about this whenever we were talking about Xavier Worthy and what did Harish say? Just the gems he was getting dropped by Quinn, right? But I'll tell you one thing that's very clear is those guys' chemistry last year was just garbage. Well, and it's so funny that we didn't just see it through I don't go back and watch last year's. Why would I go back and watch last year's games? I've watched them all. I've seen them all. Half of them I don't want to be I don't want to live through watching this game again. For these purposes, I kind of had to and stuff. And it really, I think last year, that was the narrative. These guys don't have a connection. They just don't. But having seen them this year, and the fact that I wouldn't say that it's like a Colt McCoy, Jordan Shipley thing where they grew up in the same. What is it? They had the same crib when they were little. They grew up to get. What was it? They didn't have a TV, or was that David Ash? It doesn't matter.
Roommates, and then
roommates. Their dads.
The dads were roommates.
I'm not saying that Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy have that kind of mind meld, but it feels to me like they got a connection. They feel pretty comfortable with one another. There is no level of comfort in this game. Yeah, they're roommates. There was no level of comfort in that game between Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy. There just absolutely just wasn't. Sloppy special teams. Sloppy. Let me just ask you this first, Blake. Tell me what you think the most sloppy game of special teams you've seen this year is. One where you're just like, God, the special teams really blew that.
Was it the early season? There were a couple Bert Auburn missed field goals, maybe.
Missed field goals?
I'm trying to think of what else. There were early in the season. There was one that I can't think of, but clearly it hasn't been nearly as bad as it was last year.
Do you know what the worst thing would be? Buying a home in DFW without calling Val Garcia. Can you imagine? Oh God, look at Val Garcia. Can you imagine living in DFW and not calling Val Garcia if you need to buy or sell a home? He's going to sell your house for free. For free. And if you tell him that you heard about him on Football with Friends, he's going to sell your house for half price. 1.5%, half price. Guys, that's going to save you $5K, $10K, $20K, $25K, depending on how much your house costs. And if you work in education, you work in the ministries, those are Val Garcia's people, man. Those are the people who helped bring him up, to help shape him to the man that he is today. And I'm going to tell you, he's a big man. He's a strong man. He's a good man. He's a hardworking man. And I'll tell you what, he's a fun guy to be around. He's going to help you with getting your listing up. He's going to help you with how to market your home. He's going to take care of it. Stem to stern, tail to snout. Val Garcia is there to help with every bit of your home selling, your home buying process, and you're going to save massive amounts of money. So if you live in the DFW area, or if you know somebody who lives in the DFW area, that's most important. Val always says, man, remind people, you might not live in DFW, but you know somebody who lives in DFW. This is Coppell, Frisco, there's a Salina, there's a million of these spots, right? That are just all around DFW. McKinney, there's a million of these spots. He's got 14 agents that are going to help you. They're going to do your open house. They're going to get that thing staged. They're going to get that thing sold. He's top 25% in the DFW for a reason. He's our oldest sponsor here. He's a great sponsor. I love Val Garcia. You will love him too. Please, if you know anybody in DFW who's even looking, let him know about Val and Realty, Val Garcia. His phone number is 469-64 Gun Barrel City. Dude, he's going to get a call. See, Sherman, he's going to get a call from Gun Barrel City someday. And I think he's just going to have to take the listing for sure, since we've advertised it so much. His phone number is 469-647-8729 at valenrealty.com, and also Val Garcia at valenrealty.com. He's our guy, dude. I mean, we love Val Garcia. Please give him a call for anything you need. So, but what we were saying was that, dude, when I ask you about a game where the special teams were bad, you just think to yourself, well, I can't really think of one. A couple Bert Auburn missed kicks.
There was a running into the punter in one game.
Okay, so in this game, Texas allowed a blocked punt, a bad one where it's like they didn't even block anybody. In this game, Texas Jordan Whittington ran into the punter. In this game, they blew a giant opportunity. Keelan Robinson blew a giant. Do you remember Keelan Robinson? He had a giant opportunity to pin him down on the 1 yard line and just let that thing dribble into the end zone. Yep. It gave them, and they went back and had a scoring drive on that one. It would not have been a scoring drive if they were pinned inside their one at that point in the game. Also at the very end, just a terrible onside kick attempt. That's four things. Like if there were a game like that on Texas' resume this season, I guarantee you would remember that. I would remember that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like that's another area where it's like Sarkis said, one of the ways that you can monitor the ways that your team is growing and the way that your team is developing, especially among the depth that you're starting to accumulate, some of the good solid depth, dude, I would say on defense, kind of, especially, like the Jelani McDonalds of the world and stuff. Like, how do you know that they're developing? Well, whenever they're key special teams guys, and your special teams is like they're good at making tackles, they don't let up a bunch of huge returns. They don't like you. That's development too, right? That's understanding that's kind of that level of development's happening. Not just among the starters and not just among the guys that play offense and defense, but the guys who are going to be starters on offense and defense that are understanding that they're honing their skills, they're honing their craft at a different position, right? But punt gunner is still a football position, and if you see that they're getting better and better and better at through the course of the year, that's Sarkis said that bodes well for the way that they're going to develop when they get on offense or defense. It feels like that's the way the Tech. I have no issues with the special teams this year. I like a game like this. It simply hasn't happened.
In fact, they've made a lot of positive plays. Not only the worthy touchdowns on returns, but blocked kicks, blocked punts. Shout out D. Camillus, by the way, just subtly. Like that was an awesome.
Dude, that's true. Why have we not talked about that? That's so true. But yeah. So as far as like just sloppy on special teams, dude. And look, I'm only this far. I'm only this far through the list. We have too much to get to. We're gonna get this thing finished next.
I'll find the guy who sent it. Here it is, right here. Angry Hammer Jason wanted to know any recruiting impact to this class. What about the next class?
Well, that's on my agenda. As soon as we're done with this video, I'll be working the phones today, Angry. But I don't know that it'll have a huge impact on this class. I mean, obviously the committed guys are going to be excited, and maybe it helps secure a guy like Jarrett Gibson and get him, kind of lock him back in. There really aren't a lot of remaining targets in this class. So I think if it's going to have an impact, I think it probably spills over more into that 2025 group than it does 2024. Does it help them maybe flip Xavier Filsaime, someone like that? I mean, listen, it can't hurt, obviously, but it's not like Texas has the room right now for some influx or a wave of recruits to start just jumping on board. But for 2025, yeah, listen, man, we've said it for years. If Texas is kind of a sleeping giant, once they start winning, this recruiting will take off like a rocket ship. I mean, they recruit well anyways, but when you got a college football playoff to sell, absolutely, it should impact. I'd say a little bit of impact, over the next couple of weeks, but moving forward for that 2025 class, I think it has a big impact.
Keep an eye on the portal. That may be maybe even more so than for 2024 anyway. It may impact. I get the sense that there's a lot of people that are calling Texas that aren't even in the portal yet. This could help them really get a bang-up class, knowing that Texas will be poised, even though they'll be rebuilding and they lose a lot from this team. If they bring Ewers back, I mean, they'll be a top 10 team going into the country next year, I think, with the presence of that alone. And Texas will have a loaded young roster. It may be unproven in some areas, but I think they'll get the benefit of the doubt, especially if they perform well coming into the playoff against Washington. I think things look good right now.
Oh yes, all right. Back on a Victory Monday, man. So pumped to be here with all you guys, dude. Thanks so much for everybody for tuning in today. We're gonna get through the rest of this stuff. We're gonna do some prize picks, and we're gonna get out of here, man. But certainly love being here with you guys today. If you enjoy the show, man, just make sure to come back tomorrow. Come back every day, man. 3:30 to 5:30. We are here. So of course Central Time. The grade is the Lord's. I call it the Lord's time zone. It is indeed the best. I just hated that on all my work I do on like Sirius or like the Roto Grinders video stuff. Like I always have to just figure out like Eastern and get it mixed up all the time. But I think that isn't Central like the really just kind of, shouldn't it be the one where like everybody else just figures that off as Central, just the one that's right in the middle? Why do we have to do it for the Far East? Yeah.
At least Eastern's better than Pacific and Mountain and all dealing with all of those times for sure.
Yeah, you got it. Elroy Rillas, great show. Take it easy, guys. All right, brother. If you got to get out, we still have one more segment, man. But we'll definitely see you later, brother. Thank you for tuning in. Football Know It All says, do you think if Quinn absolutely goes nuts during this playoff run, will he go pro or still come? I just kind of think that an announcement's going to come before any hypothetical playoff run would begin.
I think that too.
I don't know. Maybe. Well, I mean,
if the announcement doesn't come, I think that would be interesting. If we don't get any word before those games start,
then it means he's like, oh, and it's probably the most plus EV thing for Quinn to do to just say, well, let me just see. Like, at the end of the day, I think, dude. All the cards, you lay all the cards out on the table, and I guarantee you Quinn would say, like, in a perfect world, would I rather come back or go pro? He would rather go pro, right? He's received feedback that he hasn't necessarily liked, and he's like having to make the decision to come back, and I'm sure he's fine with it. You tell me in a perfect world that Quinn Ewers, who's always planning on going pro after this year, doesn't want to. I mean, I tell you, I just don't believe that. I would say probably the most plus EV thing for him is just to leave all the options. I'm always in favor of do what you can to leave as many possible avenues open to you, as many possible options open to you, and don't just knock anything completely out of consideration before you totally have to, right? Sark After Dark, he says, you need a prize pick slip for tonight. I'm not sure if you want to tail me after the weekend I had on prize picks. It's just like, it's brutal. Justin Fields can't get 3 more yards. Are you kidding me?
I actually hit a 4 out of 5, but the one that I missed on that entry wasn't even close. It was Alvin Kamara receiving yards, and he had negative 11, and I had the more. That's
just embarrassing.
God.
Justin Fields had 50 rushing yards at half, Blake, and he couldn't get past 60.5.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
Yeah, I was just like I was already counting the money. I was like, why 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022. If you've missed any of it, you can go back and hear all the reasons. But yeah, we'll get to some prize picks here in a second. The right guard position was in flux. It was a rotation the whole time. One guy, Cole Hudson, messes up. They put in DJ Campbell. He messes up. They put in Cole Hudson. They do all this stuff. They were just series after series. Just Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell, Cole Hudson.
Hudson wasn't playing well, and DJ Campbell just wasn't ready yet.
It's just different. DJ Campbell's played the whole season, and yes, he played a down game, but he's completely taken over for Cole Hudson at this point. And he's scored grades in the deep dig at points this year that make him look like he's eventually going to be a definite. I wouldn't say a first-round pick, because to be a first-round pick at guard these days is hard. It's like being a first-round pick at inside linebacker or at running back, right? But just to go as one of the top guards in the country. Like he's going to be able to do that because and I know that, people will say, well, PFF has him graded as the 124th guard in the country. I'm like, well, for one, PFF's grades are like super weird and like whatever. But the other thing is they don't take into account they don't take just the high level plays into account the same way that I would by saying like, dude, from an athletic standpoint, what that guy just did is amazing. It's like, he has flashes, and it's become more than just flashes. It's become like boom, boom, lightning strike after lightning strike after lightning strike. Then one, like, we're like, what? And then just lightning strike, like that's how it's been with DJ, man. He's going to be so much better in this game. The version of him this year, so much better than the one last year. We're still going down this list. Casey Kane was technically the team's alpha wide receiver in this game. Certainly the starting X wide receiver. Casey Kane. Do I even need to really spend much time talking about the differences between Casey Kane and Adonai Mitchell? Adonai Mitchell has played a season at Texas so far this year where he is about to go pro. He's been great. We talked about all the different things that the scouts like about him that we talked about earlier.
Going to be a phenomenal player for the Chiefs next year.
He even has the stuff where he has things going on with his game that I didn't even see in that scouting report that I mentioned, that I like threw on top and said, well, yeah, but he's got that, he's got this and this and this, his transition points, his route stem, change of direction once he gets there. And then you have Casey Kane, who played 44 snaps, 5.33% of total snaps on the entire season, only in blowout games, and is now in the transfer portal. So that's the difference. Do you think that there's a difference between it's like a Dachshund versus a Doberman? Right. I mean, they're both kind of this, they both kind of play the, because I think Dachshunds kind of look like little Dobermans a little bit.
I can see it.
They're both I think they're both feats of German engineering, right? Both made to help their humans with various forms of work. The Doberman, I believe the Doberman was the one that they had as the attack dog for their soldiers and stuff like that, security work. Dachshunds, do you know what Dachshund means, Blake?
No. What does it mean?
It means it means badger hound.
Badger hound. Interesting.
Yeah, because what they would do, why their little bodies are little tubes like that? How
so they can get into holes?
So they can go down to holes, man. They're fierce little dogs. The reason why they did these tests on the dogs' testosterone levels, right? The dogs with the highest T dogs, and of course it's the ones that you would think like pit bulls and stuff, super high T, Rottweilers, Dobermans. But the one at the very top of the list, as far as the amount of testosterone for whatever in their blood or wherever testosterone, I guess is testosterone I guess it's in your blood because they check your blood for T levels.
I think so.
You're gonna have to do that one day, Blake. Thank God I'm still strong like bull. But they say that the Dachshund's just the highest T dog there is, man, because they have to go in there, and badgers aren't any little punks. They're not. No. Badgers are awful. You got to go in there, and you're like in a little hole. You probably can't even use your arms. You just got to get down there with your face just into a badger hole and get them to come out the other side. Like, man. But, and I'm not saying that Casey Kane is a guy that can put down a little hole and scare out a badger.
So basically, Casey Kane is an awesome player.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's just comparing those two guys is it's beyond cockamamie,
It's kind of like what we were saying about Diamante Tucker Dorsey and Anthony Hill earlier.
Dachshund and Doberman, right? DTD versus Anthony Hill.
Fine player, good player, but not the same levels.
Are we having that conversation? I mean, David Benda got in that game some, but man, it was Tucker Dorsey started the game and he was the starter at will. It's just you can't compare it. Savion Red was a wide receiver who actually played. So was Brennan Thompson. Man, are you telling me that you have this cavalcade of wide receivers like Savion Red, who now plays wide receiver, Brennan Thompson, who has to transfer out, Casey Kane, who's on his way transferring out, Xavier Worthy with a broken hand. I mean, that's like a dented can aisle of options for Quinn Ewers. It's an island of misfit toys. It's like that was an island of misfit toys. What he has this year is a garage full of Lamborghinis. It just is. JT Sanders wasn't JT Sanders last year. Are you kidding? Like none of these guys. Add on the fact you have no running game. I mean, what are we talking about? Like, this is why 2023 Texas versus it's not 2022. 0 edge rush. 0. Worse than 0. Ovi Ogwofu played 67 snaps in this game. He generated 1 point per production. And I don't know whether he had a tackle. Here, I'll just go back and look. The bold disruption. So in this game, Ovi Ogwofu played 67 snaps. And he had 2 assisted tackles. No pressures, no hits, no TFLs, no solo tackles, no nothing. 0, zilch, nada. Nothing off the edge. 0, nothing. And I just went back and looked at all of 2022 total sacks plus hits plus pressures versus 2023. And the numbers aren't that much different. Clearly, there's more this year. 184 in 2022 total sacks plus quarterback hits plus pressures. 194 in 2023. So 10 more basically during the regular season, give or take 1 more per game, right? 0.87 per game. But so much more of it was dialed up last year. It was guys like Jade Barron where they had to just kind of dial it up. They had to take away from the back end of the defense to get this stuff. None of it was organic. You know, it was linebackers on stunts. It was Jade Barron having to come up and do this stuff. Jalen Gilbo had a couple of these types of plays last year before he got hurt. You look at the guys who get the pressures this year, the top pressure guys this year, there were like 13 guys that had at least 16 pressures. There was only one guy who led the team last year with pressures. I guess it was Sorrell. I don't have the sheet pulled up, but he, like the guy who led the team, and there was a big drop off after him, was it 13 pressures. So it's like, you know, Texas is getting this organic pressure, it's completely different. And when you're linchpin, the guy who plays basically every snap of the game doesn't get one single pressure, not a quarterback hit, not 2 assisted tackles. Come on, it's like that's a different thing. It's just it's like we haven't seen anything like that all year this year. It's a completely different beast, man. Okay. Finally, believe it or not, safety's better this year. Anthony Cook last year, missed tons of missed. He had like, what do you have on the season? 10 missed tackles, something like that. His snap here, I'll pull it up. So Anthony Hill, 2022.
Cook.
I'm sorry, Anthony Cook, 2022. Market Master. So you had last year these safeties, Jaron Thompson with 13 missed tackles on the season, Anthony Cook with 10 missed tackles on the season. I mean, when these safeties are missing all these tackles, it makes a big deal because where do those missed tackles occur? Right? Mm-hmm. Those missed tackles occur on the back end of these plays, right? The other thing is with the missed tackles, as long as we're talking about it, Jalen Ford last year was, he was better. He was more opportunistic, though. He was the guy who generated a bunch of turnovers, took a lot of risks and things like that. It might have been one of the reasons why he was, he graded a little bit better last year because he was a little bit better at generating turnovers, doing that stuff. Man, but the other side of that coin was that last year, Jalen Ford missed 16 tackles in the regular season. 16 tackles. That's compared to 7 tackles he's missed this year. Jalen Ford was not as sure a tackler last year as he was this year. You saw that one miss from earlier. You saw the one miss. He got the bad run fit, missed the tackle, all of that stuff. And you have the fact that with you have the fact that when the linebackers are missing more tackles, the safeties are missing more tackles, all these guys are missing more tackles. Like that's never going to be good, and especially in a game wherever you're operating from a spot where you think that the matchup that they're going to be trying to exploit you with is the one that is going to be getting the football down the field to where these guys are going to be having to get the guys on their backs. So like everything that we've seen this year, we cannot project it to be a game like last year, where we had 4 or 5 different guys have multiple missed tackles in that game. So it's a list, and here it is. 2023 Texas versus Washington is not 2022. And if anybody wants to tell you, man, I saw that game last year, but Washington's just the better team, you nod your head, you say, all right.
I hope those Washington folks believe that. I hope they believe it's the same Texas team coming in there. We can beat them again. Because if they think that, they're in for a world of hurt. Like,
you guys want to do some prize picks?
Hey, can I bring up a random sports story that I think is really cockamamie that I just saw on Twitter?
Sure. Yeah.
So Shohei Ohtani signs with the Dodgers over the weekend, right? The details of his contract have just come out. And this is the most ridiculous contract I've ever heard. It's a 10-year deal worth $700 million. Okay? He's getting paid $2 million a year for the next 10 seasons, and then $680 at the end of the deal. Can you believe that?
I for one, I'm not sure it's a smart move by Ohtani. I mean, it's like, how bad's inflation going to be over the course of the next however 10 seasons? That 680 at the end might not be worth 680. You know.
The crazy thing is the Dodgers are going to get away with $46 million in cap hit for the next.
But they're gonna have to at some point. At some point the bill comes due.
Right. Yeah, and then 10 years.
So in 10 years, so they're just mortgaging away.
Just dropping 6.
In 10 years, they just.
What?
I don't understand how baseball's salary cap works, but I don't understand how you can just take on a $680 million.
There is no salary cap in baseball.
Okay. Well, so
there's a luxury.
They're just saying that this is they're saying like this is a lot of money. Like, give us some time to save it up. Well, we got to get, Well,
just think, Alex. It's like a Jimbo buyout every year worth.
Is he going to? Is
10 years?
Do they have to put that 680 in escrow?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know how exactly this is going to play out, but this just came out at 4:50 like 30 minutes ago. I saw on Twitter and I was like,
"Did you see
deferred the entire contract?"
Did you see the breakdown of how much of that stuff is going to go to federal and California taxes?
Oh yeah, it's an enormous amount.
It's criminal. I don't understand how people. I don't understand how. And I guess it's probably because he's in the highest tax bracket. But it's like I don't know how people can afford to live in that state. You got to pay your federal taxes, which are already so expensive, man. But then, like the state is going to tax you too. It's like, man, I remember whenever I recorded the new morning record up in New York back in 2013, dude. When I got that payment, I was so tilted because we were, they told us about the amount. We had to move. We had to go live in New York for like 6 months to make this record and do all the stuff. And so we were kind of depending on the cash. But when you got it, they took out taxes for the federal government. They took out taxes for the state of New York. And get this, New York City has a tax.
Ugh.
Since we recorded it at Avatar on Manhattan, it's like Manhattan, the city itself has a so they took legit like 60% of the money, and I'm a broke musician thinking I'm gonna get like 10 G's out of this thing. I end up getting like $4,200. That's just the rest went to the great state of the great state of New York and certainly love New York City, but man, I don't know how. Clearly, Ohtani can afford it. I don't know how regular folks can pay all that. Do you have a favorite, a most fun fish to catch?
I was gonna say a redfish. That like just a big bull redfish.
It's the best.
Most fun for me.
It's the best
because it doesn't completely wear you out. It's not like an hour-long thing, but it's a fun.
But it's a good big fight. It's a good big fight. It's not like all those ones that are like the ones that are like the tubes, like the lings and the kingfish, or the king max, you know, or the kingfish, and the tarpon and the marlin, and all the rest of those that are like shaped like tubes that just shoot through the water, you know, and like
Streamlined.
those things are hard, man, to catch. Wahoo. I like just fighting against redfish and like big bass and stuff like that. Some of the early mentioned a smallmouth bass. I've had a smallie on before. Northern pike. Those things are lots of fun on top water if you can get to a good spot. But I think redfish are the best, because the thing is, whenever you have a redfish on, you know that on the other end of that fight, you have a delicious meal, right? I'd say red snapper's the worst, because half the time they're dead by the time you drag them up to the boat. All right, let me just share my screen here. Have you ever been on one of those red snapper boats, Blake?
I have. Yeah, it's been a while. We went off the coast of Florida, I believe.
Did their brains blow up inside their heads before you could get them on board?
Oh, I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I don't think we were fishing deep enough for that to happen, but I could be wrong.
Okay, well, here's what I know about this thing. What is Tyreek Hill? I'm always just interested in Tyreek Hill moors. So let's see where it's at. 100. Oh,
Achane plus Hill rushing plus receiving touchdowns, 1.5. That's interesting.
22.5 receiving score. I mean, fantasy score. God, I mean, they're not making him cheap these days. But dude, going up against Tennessee, and that, I mean, it's a terrible secondary. What about Achane? Let me just clear this. Achane's going to score a bunch of points tonight. He always does.
I hope he does. I need a combined 28 points from Henry and Achane to win tonight in my other league.
Catch already has me beat, but Trash Man's going to lose anyway, so I'm going to make the playoffs.
There you go.
All right. Thankfully, Trash Man rolled out a real trashy roster and captained Mike Evans, who didn't get a target till like the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
You can check out the CFP lines that are up too, and see if I know you're making one for tonight. But
dude, this might be one.
Put this together.
This might be one where I'm going to go with it's on Tavion Wicks. Really, 35.5 receiving yards. He's going to get it, man. No Christian Watson. Let me just see what Jaden Reed's at. Oh, man. Isn't the Bird going to get more than 11 fantasy points in PPR with no Watson? What do they have Dobbs at?
Yeah.
Hold on. Reed. They have something with him and Hopkins. No, thank you. What's Dobbs? 45.5. Gosh, I hate Dobbs, but that's probably pretty good. It just feels like Wicks is getting more. I love Wicks. I love Reed the most out of these guys. 47.5 receiving yards seems doable, but the fact is sometimes he just scores on these long touchdown runs, you know? It's 4 receptions. He gets
4 every game.
If he's doing this, he's gonna get more than 4 receptions. I think. Do you think?
Well, he's gonna get exactly 4 according to the previous.
Or do you think it's better to take the fantasy score? Versus the Giants.
Gotta be the fantasy score, right? Like,
he's gonna get in the box, dude. He's gonna score. Devon Achane's going for more than 13 fantasy points. Jaden Reed's going for more than 11 fantasy points in a PPR. I just want to make sure there's nothing else that I just can completely get behind here. I mean, dude, Tyreek Hill at 112, it just feels like that's kind of – God, Tyjae Spears is going to probably catch more than that, isn't he? Oh, yeah, I guess he hadn't been doing it lately. No.
Burks.
God, man, Burks, are you kidding me? Dude, I like these two.
Power play.
Yeah, I'm gonna put 40 on it and see if I can make that work. Go put it in a DraftKings lineup or something else for some extra action here after a while.
Yeah, and check out the college football lines before we log off. There were some other ones that were interesting.
CFB for when?
For the playoff.
Okay.
I wanted to see your thoughts on the Quinn Ewers number, and then they have a CJ Baxter rushing number too.
Quinn 290.5. He'll probably get that. Baxter. Oops.
He's at 72.5.
72.5. He'll get that.
I think the interesting one on as far as if people are actually playing these like ahead of time, if you go to rushing yards, they got Milrow. And you can just scroll through those are the only two Texas plays they got. But if you scroll through the rushing yards and the receiving yards, they got Milrow at 32.5. I think he gets that.
Oh gosh, he's gonna like triple that.
He's gonna hammer that, right?
Yeah.
And then I would take the less on McCarthy at 16.5, considering that factors in sacks. Like,
yeah.
Then they got those Washington numbers. Odunze at 9.5.
Oh, that's a lot but I mean, he always gets there. It's a lot of green, like you said. I don't know, dude. I think that McMillan's probably the one. I was just like, man, it feels like if his is depressed because he's been out, maybe that'd be the one to bet. I feel like he's actually really good. All right, man. Hey, the chat is the chat is really good, man. The viewers of the show here are really good, man. We love you guys so very much. Can't thank you enough for taking some time here to be with us. We'll be back tomorrow, 3:30 to 5:30. As always, thank you for tuning in. For Blake, I'm Alex. We're done.